Sick of hot takes and terrible security advice? We've got the cure. The Antisyphon Antidote. Brought to you by Antisyphon Training at antisyphontraining.com. Today's prescription. PowerShell. Where do those magic variables come from?
Sometimes when I'm using PowerShell, I wonder things like, how do I list my current PowerShell version? So we're going to use ChatGPT to see how much it can help us. So how do I list my current PowerShell version? Okay, lots of good stuff. It says we can use a magic variable called $PSVersionTable. It says it's an automatic variable. To me, that's magic. So here we go. Let's try it. And there we have it. Awesome. Another time I needed to know my current process ID. How to list current process ID in PowerShell. And here we have it, $PID. That's so cool. So many of the things that I want to know are just magically a variable in PowerShell. But where does this come from? This is odd to have variables defined and ready to be used, and we don't know where they came from. Let's ask ChatGPT. Where do automatic variables come from in PowerShell? So it lists a few things here. It says they're just magically available in PowerShell. Here's some examples: PSVersionTable, $PID, error, reference to our last error and our arguments, and we could do get help about automatic variables within PowerShell. But we want to know, what are all the variables? Because instead of having Google every time to figure out that maybe our answer is hidden in a magic variable, we just want to list all the automatic variables available in PowerShell. Says here's a list of some of the commonly used variables. We have $home that points to our home directory. We have the two we looked at. We have PWD, prints our current working directory or our current directory, arguments, errors, but it's still not telling us what all the variables are. So thank goodness ChatGPT didn't give us everything we wanted to know, because then I wouldn't need to do this video and we might not even need humans. So let's go over and explain. I was very fascinated when I found out that these magic variables come from a place called provider. So we can say get PowerShell provider, and we get a list of providers. And providers are things that are file-like systems or can be treated like files. So you got files and folders and directories, and inside the directories are the files, and the files have data. Well, we can think about file systems like we have here, file systems. We're familiar with the C drive on Windows, but we can also think of things like file systems, like the registry. We have the registry provider here. HKLM and HKCU stand for Hive Key Local Machine and Hive Key Current User. So those gives us access to the Windows registry. And there's some other providers. Well, one of these providers gives us the magic variables, which is this variable provider. So each of these providers here have a drive name. So drive, think of our file system. We're used to saying list out the contents. So LS for list, the contents of the C drive. So here we have things we're familiar with being in the C drive on Windows. So we just listed out the C drive. So we can use the same syntax with all of our providers. So we could say list out the contents of our Hive Key Current User portion of our Windows registry. So we could say LS Hive Key Current User : and here it lists out all the registry keys that are available in that registry hive. What else do we have? We have aliases. Those are shortcuts to PowerShell commands. So let's let's list out the aliases, but there's a lot of them. So we'll send this with the pipe symbol to more. And here we have an alias. We can use AC as a shortcut instead of add content when we're using PowerShell. Let's see if we have an LS one. Let's try our alphabet. Here, LS. LS is actually a shortcut for get child item command, but who wants to type that when we can just type LS, which we're used to on all of our Linux and Mac systems. So that's our alias drive. We can list out all of our shortcuts to longer commands. Go back to our list, and what we were interested in showing today is this variable drive, because that's where all these magical variables come from, and we can get the full list. Let's do it the long way and say get child item, just to show that it's the same as LS. We'll say get child item or LS on the variable drive. And there we have it, our answer. Where do the magic variables come from in PowerShell, and what are they all? They come from PowerShell provider, from a variable drive. And here are all of the variables. We have args and air and home that we looked at. We have a null and false and true and PID and our PowerShell profile. And yes, PSVersionTable right here. So now you know where all the magic variables come from in PowerShell.
The doctor says, pop 2 shells before lunch, and don't forget to like and subscribe. If symptoms reoccur, check out these videos while you wait for the next Antisyphon antidote.